Evening, folks. Brian here. It's Saturday, October 25, 2025. Just finished watching Randall Carlson's latest video with this guest talking about Three-Eye Atlas. I do not fall in line with most of the people on this subject matter. I chose my own path, which is always going to be different from everybody else. I did find it interesting. Mr. Carlson is one of the very few I'll take the time to listen to. So, I'm going to talk about history, and some parts of history belong in the future. So, to maintain a unity of belief, faith depends on consistency, or the carefully chosen knowledge, the pre-programming us to think and believe a certain way, or how not to think beyond the boundaries set by those few who know the truth of missing texts, to maintain one coherent story in the Bible while safeguarding others like the Book of Enoch and others. These secrets which are buried deep below the Vatican, which is not just to guard history, but it's to edit it as well. And faith is not only spiritual guidance, but also influences over kingdoms and cultures. And faith is the foundation of law and order in which we live by, most of us. But there comes a time when faith and science unite, such as at the Vatican's Advanced Technology Telescope located in Arizona. For some reason, they called it Lucifer, but they break it down to the Large Binocular Telescope Near-Infrared Utility with Camera and Integral Field Unit for Extragalactic Research. It's like they wanted to call it Lucifer, but they had to come up with this long name to make it fit. Why would they call it Lucifer? Let's try and explain it. So if the Bible, in which we have known for so very long, is missing books, that could create confusion among the faithful if they introduce it now. This is why they have to keep it buried deep below the Vatican. And silence becomes a form of preservation. And the most dangerous stories are not the ones that are told, but the ones that disappear quietly into the depths of the Vatican. And when truth threatens power, it becomes very dangerous. In the past, it was not a time without knowledge. It was a time without access to that knowledge. Knowledge and truth is not lost, but is hidden on purpose in the name of order and to maintain the status quo. But eventually, myths and faith will collide. And again, the faith is a chosen knowledge preached throughout the ages, but it's on a collision course with a suppressed history of the past, which up until now we call myths. Myths of the Anunnaki, the Watchers. The Vatican's telescope, which is not a myth, on watch for the time of the next crossing of the destroyer, or about what they would define as Lucifer. On the current topic of the sun's recent backside CMEs, I'm going to veer off just a little bit. Being triggered by Three-Eye Atlas, it's only a coincidence unless, and I'll get to the unless in a minute, the correlation of comet impacts on what seems to be trajectory impacts and coronal mass ejections, excuse me, it's very limited, extremely limited. There has not been enough long-term data. There has not been enough events, and no one, to the best of my knowledge, provides any explanation on the mechanism. To the contrary, like me, for example, when I come up with a hypothesis, it's very late, I'm sorry. But my theory of mantle plumes, It's almost 3 years ago now. It takes years of observation, study, gathering data, making suggestions. This is what would happen, and these things happen. Just like the idea of low pressure system inducing earthquakes, causing earthquakes. Explain the mechanisms. You can't just say 3i Atlas comes around making us pass behind the sun and all of a sudden, boom. You know what? That's not the first time. There have been many other examples of large back-size explosions of the sun, and there's been no Atlas coming by. And you know what? Think. The size of Atlas, 3i Atlas, is smaller than the grains of sand of all the deserts in the world in comparison to the size of the sun. Again, explain the mechanism. And it's not causing a CME. It would have to cause a flare or a filament eruption, which produces a CME. These people have to explain or suggest a mechanism, not just simply coincidence, in my opinion. Going back to the unless, now don't you find it strange and odd that they are allowing all of this information about 3i Atlas to be broadcasted throughout the internet and all these news interviews and so on and so on and so on? They want you to know that something's out there, something's coming, but what if it's much, much larger? What if it's part of this much, much larger coming? For example, before Apophis, the god of chaos, projected to be here in April of 2029. This falls within the 3,600-year timeline. There's some information out there. It's 3,657 years. Well, the last catastrophic event on planet Earth was 3,654 years. 53 to 54 years. So 2029 is another 3.5 to 4 years away. Man, isn't math great? What if Apophis is not Apophis? What if it's the system coming in? The Bureau, the destroyer. And before it brings us to Brieffield. The secrets hidden in the Vatican. Lucifer in Arizona. And so on. I just want to give you my thoughts on what's going on. I do a lot of reading and research about the Vatican and the secrets hidden below. They only allow people to access 1 out of 1,000 texts. They are not allowed to photocopy it. They're not allowed to take pictures of it. They're only allowed to read it. That's it. 1 out of every 1,000. Some parts of that history belong in the future. Myths will become reality. But they want to cover up that reality, which is why they're allowing all this nonsense out there about 3i Atlas. At the time the government shuts down, and I repeat, in March 2018 and later into the end of 2018, the beginning of 2019, they noticed that the geomagnetic north suddenly accelerated so fast it caught them off guard and it scared them. Then at the same time, the government shut down, the longest government shutdown. Well, maybe this one's going to be the longest. Why do you think the government shut down at the same time they found that geomagnetic north suddenly accelerated? They had to do a lot of scrambling. They had to do a lot of reset and recalibration of everything. Now it's happening again. At the same time. As the sights from the heavens above. Yeah. Anyway, folks, to some of my viewpoints and thoughts, what's going on. And how everything lines up with what's going on in the world today. Remember, for the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Anyway, I think that's it for now. As you were.